When you watched Toy Story 3, did you ever wonder what happened to the other toys that didn't show up in Andy's toy box? Well, I did, and a few years ago I created a video that tried to figure out where they went, and it was called The Forgotten Toys of Toy Story. It's been far and away the most popular video on my channel, and since you all loved it so much, we're back again. This is The Forgotten Toys of Toy Story Part 2. Now before we begin, you might want to check out part 1 where I tried to speculate on the fate of characters like Wheezy, RC, and others. Go ahead and click the card above. But for those of you who haven't seen part 1, I'll go over the guidelines quickly. Obviously, none of us really know what happened to the minor characters in the Toy Story films, but it's fun to speculate and try to guess where they ended up. So based on the rules of the Toy Story universe and the history of other toys in these films, I tried to figure out what happened to some of the supporting characters between Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3. The toys in this video will either be saved as a keepsake, maybe in the attic, sold at a yard sale, donated to other children, or broken and trashed. So with that being said, let's begin, and of course there are spoilers from all Toy Story films in this video. Green Army Men. Who can forget Andy's little green army men that played such a pivotal role in Toy Story by carrying out a major mission to spy on Andy's birthday party and to share the intel with Woody and the rest of the toys. Led by Sarge, these army soldiers provided a few small memorable moments in the first film. In Toy Story 2, they carry out a few other missions to find Woody's missing hat and to keep Buster out of the playroom, but unfortunately, neither of these were successful. Even though they play a relatively small role in the films, the Army Men are a very much recognizable part of the Toy Story universe and are featured in a slew of merchandise. This includes the Buckados Soldiers, which in my opinion is probably the most lame toy ever released from this franchise. But regardless, in the first two movies, Andy had over 200 Army Men. But by Toy Story 3, he's down to just Sarge and a few paratroopers who eventually leave the playroom and join Ken and Barbie at Sunnyside Daycare. So where did the rest of the soldiers go? Well, there are clues in the first and third movie. In Toy Story, we see Andy's mom accidentally crush a soldier, bending him out of shape and essentially rendering him useless. That soldier survived, but others, I don't think they were so lucky. Here's why.
Let's face it, when the trash bags come out, we Army guys are the first to go.
So it's pretty clear to me that the Army soldiers were trashed. Hockey Puck. In Toy Story, one of Mr. Potato Head's most memorable lines involved this silent, plastic, amorphic hockey puck.
What are you looking at, you hockey puck?
Interestingly enough, his name is derived from one of the favorite insults from Don Rickles, who voiced Mr. Potato Head.
Why? Listen, you hockey puck, I'm an entertainer. I get laughs with my insults.
We never got to learn much about Hockey Puck, but he was in a few scenes in the first Toy Story movie, and you can briefly see him in the yard sale in Toy Story 2. But this scene is what kind of seals his fate, if you ask me. But my guess is that our favorite walking Hockey Puck was sold. Robot is one of a handful of toys in Andy's playroom that has a minor role in the first Toy Story. His coloring and design appear to be based off Playschool's RC Robot released in 1993. While Robot doesn't do much, he does look pretty cool, and believe it or not, McDonald's even released a Robot toy as part of their Toy Story Happy Meal. Robot is best remembered for his work with building blocks and for being Buzz Lightyear's treadmill. He was briefly shown in Toy Story 2 and even in some of the flashback scenes in Toy Story 3. So where did he go? Well, as opposed to some of the other toys in the playroom, being electronic makes Robot fairly fragile, and we all know that Andy could be a little rough on his toys. So I think unfortunately Robot was broken and trashed. Barbie Dolls. So I believe that technically the Barbies belong to Andy's sister Molly, but with the release of the new Barbie movie, I thought it would be good to talk about the Barbie dolls that appear in the Toy Story movies. Believe it or not, Pixar wanted to have Barbie featured in Toy Story, but Mattel thought the film would flop and they wouldn't allow it. So instead, Barbie made her debut in Toy Story 2. and she would later appear in the other two movies as well, including this flashback scene in Toy Story 4. And it appears that the dolls in Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 4 are all different. So what happened to these Barbies? We kind of already know from Toy Story 3, as Molly decides to donate Barbie and a few other things to Sunnyside Daycare. But as far as the other Barbie dolls, my guess is that Molly stopped playing with them, and Mrs. Davis did one of her patented yard sale roundups in Molly's bedroom, leading me to believe that the rest of the Barbies, and even that pink Barbie Corvette, were sold. Shark was hardly in the Toy Story movies, but he's a minor character that many of us fans seem to remember. This blue rubber shark with a squeaker in his mouth usually hangs around in the toy box, sometimes keeping a watch for humans. Of course, the scene we remember him for is mocking Woody for waking up in the toy box as opposed to his usual spot in Andy's bed without his cowboy hat. We'd see Shark briefly in Toy Story 2, and Wheezy even credited him for helping to find a new squeaker.
Oh yeah, Mr. Shark looked in the toy box and found me an extra squeaker.
But then, he disappeared. Where did he go? Shark seems like the type of toy that hangs around a playroom. There's really nothing special or memorable about him. He's just a plastic shark that squeaks, and in my opinion, that makes him a prime candidate to be donated. So much like a lot of the toys at Sunnyside, I think that Andy's mom donated Shark. Little Tikes Firetruck. When Pixar created Toy Story in 1995, they wanted to use some toys that actually existed in real life, and that's how we got the Little Tikes Firetruck. It was one of several different types of kids' toys that Pixar actually licensed to be in the film, though I use that term loosely because we only see the Firetruck in a handful of scenes in Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 2. So what happened to our firemen and the Little Tikes Firetruck? As far as where they ended up, in Toy Story 3, we see similar looking characters in the playroom at Sunnyside, and this leads me to believe that Firetruck and its loyal firemen were donated. Speaking of toys that actually existed, Mr. Mike was yet another Playskool licensed toy by Pixar for Toy Story. Mr. Microphone Rockin' Robot was released by Playskool in 1991 following a line of successful children's tape recorders. Much like Mr. Mike from Toy Story, the original device had a microphone, tape deck, and even an AM/FM tuner. Of course, after Toy Story's box office success in 1995, Playskool released a new version of Mr. Mike, which now included a voice changer. Mr. Mike's contributions in Toy Story are minimal. In the first Toy Story movie, he's best remembered for being the sound system during Woody's all-hands-on-deck meeting. In Toy Story 2, he serves as the karaoke machine for Wheezy's big singing number at the end of the film, a scene that's actually immortalized in the final moments of Slinky Dog Dash at Disney World. But this famous karaoke scene would be the final time we would see Mr. Mike in any of the Toy Story movies. Where did he go? This one is tough. Mr. Mike was electrical, so it's possible that he might have gotten broken and maybe thrown out. I guess he could have gotten donated, but instead, I'm going to say that Mr. Mike was sold at a yard sale. Roly Poly Clown. One of the many residents of Andy's Toy Box was Roly Poly Clown. We'd briefly see him in Toy Story and Toy Story 2, and then we'd never see him again. So where did he go? I'm going to put Roly Poly Clown in the category of a few other toys in this video. I think Andy simply outgrew him. Now you can briefly see Roly Poly Clown in this scene from Monsters, Inc. So that tells me that he certainly wasn't trashed. So I'm going to say that like a lot of older kids' toys, I think Andy's mom donated our clown friend. Snake. Snake is a character that mainly hangs out in the background, but due to his cool design, he's somewhat of a popular figure with hardcore Toy Story fans, as evidenced by numerous 3D fan renderings. In Toy Story, Snake, along with his good pal Robot, are on podium duty. We'd briefly see him throughout the rest of the movie and in Toy Story 2, but then he was gone. What happened? I'm guessing that Snake's design eventually caught up with him. If you look closely, his body is made of plastic sections that are hinged together, so when you hold the tail, you can kind of make him slither. But these toys aren't exactly the most durable. It takes just one person to step on the body or to break a hinge, and Snake is rendered useless. With that being said, I think Snake was broken and trashed. Troikas. I got a lot of requests for people wondering what happened to the Troikas. These characters are a combination of the traditional Russian Matryoshka dolls as well as the little Tikes nesting farm animals. Unfortunately, we'd only see them briefly in Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 2. My guess is that at times, Andy probably played with each animal separately, and over time, these characters became separated from the rest. When Andy's mom went to clean his room, some of these little Troika animals ended up in a pile of small pieces that Andy's mom just didn't know what to do with. So I'm thinking that these Troika ended up trashed. Pete the Prospector. My second favorite villain in all of the Toy Story movies is Pete the Prospector. He was charming, selfish, cunning, angry, all wrapped in one minted vintage toy box. At the end of Toy Story 2, instead of going on display in the Konishi Toy Museum in Japan with the rest of the Roundup gang, Pete ends up in his own personal hell, a rambunctious little girl's backpack who loves giving her Barbie dolls makeovers. And this is the last time that we ever see him. So what happened to Stinky Pete? Well, even though he's out of his box and no longer has his pickaxe, Pete is still a valuable vintage toy that's in demand from collectors like Al. Remember, Mr. Konishi was willing to pay Al thousands to display the original Roundup Gang characters. He wouldn't pay that kind of money if people weren't interested in this toy line. So I think that at some point, someone in Amy's life recognizes the high value of her big ugly man doll and saves Pete. So I think Pete is saved and likely sold to another toy collector, even if he was given a makeover. So that is the Forgotten Toys of Toy Story Part 2. Let me know what you think and feel free to share your own theories. And maybe, if you can think of other toys, there's even enough for a Forgotten Toys Part 3. And if you get the chance, feel free to subscribe to this channel.